I had a friend not that long ago express some concern that Kevin Young and the BYU basketball program would spurn local recruits in favor of national and international recruits. One offer just this week indicates, as the great Lee Corso says, not so fast, my friend.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen and or view of the day, and appreciate all of you who we like to call everydayers right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars, and today's show is brought to you once again by our friends over at FanDuel. All summer long, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody every day, all summer long. Go to FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, let's dive right in on today's show and talk some BYU basketball. Now, there's not a lot of earth-shattering news out there, but as I mentioned in the open, I had a dear friend not that long ago say, Jake, is BYU essentially going to ignore local prospects when it comes to recruiting? Because if you looked at what Kevin Young has done in his 3 months and change as BYU men's basketball coach, he's brought in Jaeger Denham over from Real Madrid. He's brought in Cannon Catchings, who was a national recruit. He brought a number of transfers who have hailed from all over the country, but the concern was that outside of Brody Kozlowski, who is a local prospect, but in many respects was a bit of a layup once Chris Burgess came to BYU as a member of the staff, was the concern is Kevin Young going to overlook local talent in favor of going out and getting the big names out there? Now, let's start off with this. BYU's always, under Kevin Young, apparently going to chase the biggest and brightest stars that they can. None bigger, obviously, than AJ DeBonsa in the upcoming 2025 recruiting cycle. But conversely, I believe that BYU basketball is also going to make sure they have a concerted effort at finding just the simply put best talent available. An offer just earlier this week came in the form of Orem High School, formerly Lone Peak High School standout Chamberlain Burgess. Now, if that last name sounds familiar, yes, he is the nephew of BYU assistant coach Chris Burgess. Now, Chamberlain, his parents both played at BYU, so he has got a BYU blood running through him. He's got incredible athleticism at 6'9", and if you look at his kind of emerging star on the recruiting circuit, this is a kid that I think BYU realizes is going to blow up. As Robbie McCombs pointed out, he was playing at an event down in South Carolina, an AAU, one of those what do you call them? They're not the school-wide events. They're your club team, for lack of a better term, the AAU circuit. And he lit it up at 6'9", showed some really nice athleticism, but also, more importantly, the ability to really stroke it in terms of his shooting ability. And I think that Kevin Young, Chris Burgess, Brandon Dunson, on down the list of BYU's assistant coaches, looked at it and said, you know what? This is a kid that's just as good as anybody potentially on our recruiting board. Let's get in on the ground floor and give him that offer. Does it hurt that he is the nephew of Chris Burgess? Absolutely not. We all know this in this world, that who you know in many respects is better than what you know at points, but Chamberlain Burgess is proving on the court right now that he's capable of being a very, very nice talent. And I think BYU understands that if they can get in early with him, they may be able to get him to commit, essentially being in his backyard, coming down from Orem High School and not too far from Lone Peak, where he was previously playing at. Yes, you always want the AJ DeBonsas of the world. You always want the Jaeger Denhams. You always want a Cannon Catchings. You want that top-tier talent, because if BYU has aspirations of playing in a Final Four at some point during their basketball history, you're going to have those transcendent talents in Provo to do that. And Kevin Young will continue to chase those guys. But don't construe his ability to go out and recruit top-tier talent from outside the borders of Utah and say that they're ignoring local talent. There's a kid that many of you might know, you might not. Dean Ruckert is playing at Timpview High School, which is a 2-minute drive conservatively from BYU campus. And Dean Ruckert is a top 20-ish prospect in this upcoming recruiting cycle. So there is legitimate top-tier star talent coming up to the Utah high school ranks, and BYU will do well to bring those guys in, along with bringing in talent from elsewhere, essentially to put together the best roster possible. Steve Cleveland was on with DJ and PK on my radio show that I produce on a daily basis on the KSL Sports Zone. Tune in from 6 to 10 a.m., a shameless plug. But he mentioned earlier this week that he looks at BYU's rotation under Kevin Young going into the season as 10 or 11 guys deep. And he acknowledged that in very rare circumstances do any college basketball programs, no matter how good they are, play that big of a rotation. But he pointed out the fact that you can never have too much talent to go around. You want to have the best guys on your roster. And if Chamberlain Burgess is capable of being that, great. I mentioned Robbie McCombs a little bit earlier on. He had a great chat earlier this week with 2025 big man Xavier Staten, who's a 7-foot product out of Las Vegas, and he is a top 25 prospect in this 2025 class, according to 24/7 Sports as well as On3. Well, according to what Xavier told Robbie McCombs, Coach Young reached out to my mom. He watched me play in Arizona, liked my game, and thought I would be a good fit. My plan is to narrow down my top 5 or 6 schools after the Indianapolis event this weekend. Plan visits on to those in the coming months and then announce my choice. I don't want to drag out the decision any longer than needed. When I know, I'll know. BYU is close to home, which is definitely a plus. Just get the best talent. And I know that seems trite at times because you say, well, yeah, you want Xavier Staten. I've talked about wanting a big 7-footer to play for BYU. Well, Staten would absolutely figure into that because, as Robbie points out in his article, go to vanquishthefoe.com, by the way, and read it. He is looking like BYU might end up on that finalist list. AJ DeBonsa, there's some thought that he put out a graphic came out about him that had 10 schools listed that many consider to maybe be his final 10 schools, and BYU's right there on that list. Get guys into BYU, get the best talent you can. And if Chamberlain Burgess, for example, is one of those guys and he comes from your proverbial backyard in Orem, Utah, in this case, get him. Get Dean Ruckert from Timpview High School. Those guys know what BYU is all about. They've grown up around this university and absolutely would be very nice additions, in addition to getting guys like an AJ DeBonsa down the line. Is it realistic for BYU to land DeBonsa? Only time will tell, but I don't put anything past Kevin Young and his ability to go out and transform this roster because he's already transformed it in the 3 months' time. What can he do with a full year and a full recruiting cycle? That's anybody's guess, but I'm very excited to track it. And once again, I will just say that I think Kevin Young, his overarching goal in recruiting is get the best guys, the best talent he can find, the best talent he can muster, and put it on the court and see what it can do for BYU. All right, coming up next, we're going to switch over and talk some BYU football. Had a chance not too long ago to catch up with Kody Epps. We were out at the BYU Media Golf Tournament. He was there slinging it around the course. He hit 2 greens on par 4s. Cody's absolutely ripping it, folks. He'll talk about his golf game, but more importantly, he talks about the upcoming BYU football season. He's got an interesting take on what he expects for BYU in year 2 of the Big 12 versus what they experienced in year one, and we will get to that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is here for you guys if you want to have fun this summer, no matter what you're looking at, because the best part about FanDuel is they have got a bonus for you guys every single day. It's a booster bonus. Simple as that. All you got to go to is FanDuel.com to take advantage of it. If you want to take BYU, the over-under on their win total for football this fall, it's still sitting at 4.5 from our friends at FanDuel. You think we just talked BYU basketball and the transformation of the BYU basketball roster? You want to take advantage of Kevin Young's rising star? Well, go to FanDuel.com. They're still at 55-1 odds in terms of their national championship prospects. So the best part is you can have fun every single day. There's something for everybody every day, all summer long, courtesy of your friends at FanDuel. So go to FanDuel.com, start making the most of your summer once again. It's all courtesy of your friends, once again, at FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you've not done so already, make sure you guys check out Locked On Sports Today. It's your daily source for all of the news you guys need to know about in the sports world without all the shouting going on in the other networks like ESPN or Fox Sports, where you're just getting sick of the quote-unquote embrace debate. Locked On Sports Today is available on YouTube. It's also available on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's a great way to get all the news you guys need to know with the local experts of Locked On, plus all the national shows that we have running. And the best part is it's a 24/7 sports network. Think of it as YouTube's version of ESPN Sports Center, for lack of a better term. So check it out today. That's Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and also the Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, had a chance not too long ago to be at the BYU Media Golf Tournament. We're almost a month removed from it, but had a chance to catch up with a number of BYU players. We played Kalani Sitake's comments, our exclusive one-on-one with him last week on the podcast. I wanted to let you guys hear a conversation I had with Kody Epps. Now, Kody has been a guy who has been in the headlines for BYU for 3-ish years now, has flashed all kinds of potential, but has also been a guy who has been injury prone. The biggest thing for Kody Epps coming into this upcoming season is he wants to go out and show his absolute best. It doesn't hurt that he's already a rising force when it comes to NIL. He's started his own golf company, Sunny Golf. If you haven't seen that, he had his own golf tournament earlier on this offseason. He is a force unto himself. And Kody, anybody who has an opportunity to catch up with this young man knows he's an effervescent personality. I always enjoy talking with Kody. It's never a dull moment with him because he's got a personality. That's absolutely for sure. He gives very good and I think well thought out answers to questions. No question is out of bounds with him. It feels like in many respects, he's kind of like Connor Pay, who we had on the podcast yesterday. And if you missed that conversation, go back and check it out right now. I'll just pause the podcast right now. I'll give you an out. You can step away and then jump back into this one. But he is speaking of Kody, he is a guy that I think is really coming into his own at BYU. And that's a really cool thing, I think, if you're a Cougar fan. Can he be a bigger part of what BYU hopes will be a better year in the Big 12 this fall? Well, we asked him that question and more, and we'll get to that right now, right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.
How are you feeling just overall about events like this? Do you like coming out and doing things? I know you had your own golf tournament too long ago.
For sure. We get free food, we get free golf, we get to be out here with our teammates, our coaches. I mean, I would never turn an opportunity like this down at all. So blessed to be out here, so thankful. So
you've come a long way in a relatively short time. How long have you been playing golf for?
This is my second year taking it serious, and my journey this week is to break 90. I've been shooting in 95, 94, 93.
Okay.
So I'm trying to break 90.
Well, hey, driving greens on par fours will help you do that.
Yes, for sure. It's my putting that's killing me, dude.
Okay.
It's the 3 putts.
Hey.
It's the 3 putts.
Short game, man.
Yes.
It's all about that.
Yes.
I also wanted to ask you, just in terms of getting ready for this upcoming season, what's your confidence level? Where are things looking right now?
I'm excited. I'm so ready to go. I'm excited. I feel stronger than ever. My body feels better than ever. I'm just excited to go. I'm so thankful to be a part of this team. All my teammates are coming along. Dudes are getting stronger. Dudes are getting faster. Dudes are dialed in. So I'm excited.
I think you guys learned some good lessons year one in the Big 12. What's the biggest one you'll take, obviously, from year one?
Just play our game. Just because we're in the Big 12 and dudes might be a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, that doesn't change us playing football. Even when we're independent, we're playing against great teams all over across the country. So not focusing on them, but focusing on us. We know what we can do. We know what we can accomplish. So dialing in with ourselves and focusing on our game, and everything will fall into place.
Wide receiving core might be the deepest group on this team just based on looking at how many returners you guys have. What's your confidence level as you guys as receivers, even with Keanu moving to tight end and being able to contribute at a higher level this year?
I'm excited for all the guys in the room. I want to see them excel. I want to see them ball. I want to see just everybody push to that next level, what they've already built on from last season. And I'm super stoked for it.
What's the relationship with all the quarterbacks? I know it's going to be a pretty good derby here, looks like, coming up.
Well, we have one behind you trying to make me laugh right now.
I'm sure he is, yeah.
But I love the guys that we have right now. I'm loving the fact that Gerry's getting into golf. It makes me super happy. I'm thankful for the guys that I have around me. Having each and every quarterback in our room brings a different element, brings a different type of leader, brings a different type of friend that you want to have in your room, to have around you. So I'm so thankful and blessed to be around those guys.
What's your confidence level this offense is going to be better this year?
I think when you think about it from the perspective of who our offensive coordinator is, a dude that literally eats, sleeps, thinks, and poops football, I think there is no way that our offense isn't any better. And I think that Coach A-Rod will do everything in his power to make sure that we push past our limits and what we did last year and have a phenomenal season this football season. I'm so excited for the plays he's about to dial up, for Coach Fessy and what he's going to dial up, and just what the whole offense as a whole is going to do. I think everybody is going to be really proud at the end of the season.
There's a lot of naysayers about this team. The expectation is you're going to be picked 14th or 15th potentially in the league.
Yeah.
Does that give you guys any extra motivation knowing that you're being pretty lightly thought of?
Nah. I think anytime you use external motivation as motivation, it's just like gas. You got to go refill sometimes. You got to go back to Twitter. You got to go back to the people that are giving you that motivation to get some more. When it's all internal, it's there. It's like your blood. It keeps pumping. It's like your heart. It just keeps pumping and more is coming. So keeping all the motivation as internal as possible, I think is the goal. And I'm not looking about or hearing about any other things than what we're talking about in the locker room or what we're talking about on the golf course with my teammates.
Well, how are those conversations on the golf course? Are they pretty good?
Hilarious. Okay. Hilarious. You could imagine the craziest stuff being said. I'll just be transparent and honest. Some curse words are said when you shank a couple shots, but we repent and we're thankful that we do have the opportunity to let some of it fly when we're on the golf course.
Well, how important are those relationships amongst your teammates, though?
So important. So important. I think I've been saying this all day. I think the biggest thing for a team to grow and for anybody to grow, you have to go through things together. And it's not what happens in the football field, or in the locker room. It's what's happening when we're off the field, when we're together, going out to eat, when we're golfing together, when we're swimming together, when we're just chilling together. That's when the camaraderie starts. That's when the love and the bonding truly starts. It doesn't happen on the football field.
Well, I can tell you this much. Golf, as my father-in-law likes to call it, it's a 4-letter word.
Yes. Yes.
It's probably the best description I've ever heard for that sport. Well, yes. Kody, thanks for the time. We'll catch up with you as the season gets a little bit closer, all right?
Yes, thank you.
There you go, Kody Epps. And like I said, I always enjoy talking with Kody. You can tell he's very much into the golf world, but at the same time, he is very serious about his football. I'm not going to speak out of turn for him, but reading between the lines on that, you can tell that he, along with his teammates, were not pleased with how that last season ended. And I don't think anybody's pleased with it. Let's be frank. They went 0-5 in the final 5 games of the year. They're running a 5-game losing streak coming in to their season opener in just over 40 days against Southern Illinois. But I think Kody pointed out, I think the most important part of this conversation is that they learn some hard but necessary lessons coming out of year 1 in the Big 12 that will only make them better this year. I really like this wide receiving core, speaking just as a whole, including Kody. You look at the likes of Darius Lassiter, Chase Roberts, the aforementioned Kody Epps, Keelan Marion. You can go down the list, look at Parker Kingston. Keanu Hill moved to tight end, but he's still very much a part of the passing game for BYU. There is a lot of talent and a lot of depth. It might be the deepest position group, I think, Big 12 caliber depth-wise on the BYU roster. And the good news is if they can find a quarterback, whether that is Jake Retzlaff, whether that is Gerry Bohanon, or somebody else, a dark horse, if you will, that emerges, if they can consistently deliver the ball to these guys, get the ball into the hands of BYU's playmakers, there is going to be a much better opportunity for BYU this fall to emerge with a 500, a 6-6, 7-5 record. I threw it out to our Locked On Cougars insider group last night in a text and said, straw poll. What do you guys make a BYU's record? What's your prediction today? So that was as of July 17th, 2024. And I said, you reserve the right to change that. We'll talk about it more as the season gets closer. And I will say the 90% of the responses sat in the 6-6 or 7-5 range. There were a few outliers. A couple predicted 5-7. That was the lowest prediction from a couple of our Locked On Cougars insider group, but a couple of them did mention that they're looking at 5-7 with the hopes that it's a 7-5. I understand that, looking at it realistically and what you hope to see happen. But then a couple said 8-4, and I even saw one that was 9-3. So it ranges quite a bit. So the low end was 5-7, the high end 9-3. But like I said, I think we had 30. Let's see, I'll pull it right now. We had 32 responses as of recording of this podcast. And of those 32, I said like 80 to 90% of them either 6-6 or 7-5. And that I think is what a lot of Cougar fans out there expect from this BYU team. If I'm wrong, feel free to drop us a note. Let us know if we're up in the night expecting that, or if we're under appreciating what BYU is capable of this year. But getting back to the topic du jour is that I think that Kody Epps understands what they're up against. That's the biggest thing for this BYU football program is they learned a lot from year 1 in the Big 12, what it's going to take to win consistently, what it's going to take to go out there and compete on a literal play-by-play basis at the Power 4 level. And Kody, you can tell, is highly, highly motivated. And I think his teammates follow his lead in many respects at wanting to be better and expecting to be better this fall. So big thank you once again to Kody for taking the time. And Always appreciate talking with him. Like I said, Kody, he is a force, personality wise, but he's also very well thought out in how he approaches things. And if you guys want to get into the golf world, check out his new company, Sunny Golf, SONNY, Sunny Golf. I'm not being paid to endorse that, but I can tell you, Kody, he's doing some really, really cool things, both in the real world, but more importantly, looking forward to a better year on the gridiron this fall. All right, we will finish up today's podcast with a note that a BYU quarterback, yes, we didn't mention him already, but Kedon Slovis, he was drafted. Where was he drafted? We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you guys have not done so already, please sign up for our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. It's a really fun way to keep up to date with everything going on in the BYU sports universe. I'm sending updates to you guys literally in the form of a text message. It does not get much easier than that to get the updates you crave about BYU sports, insider tidbits. I mentioned a straw poll that we ran last night on what we predict for BYU's record. We got some plans to have some meetups in the coming days and months on the podcast, and just a fun way to interact with the show. If you want to have one-on-one conversations with myself, sign up today. It's a 14-day free trial. Click the link in the show notes, whether you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. 14-day free trial once again, and then a $5 a month charge after that. It's pretty simple, but at the same time, really fun. And as we get into fall camp, you will not get faster and more up to the second updates than what I will be sending via the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, our channel there. So join us and get in the group today. All right, before we go on today's show, some of you may have noticed this yesterday, but the UFL, the United Football League, the combination of the former XFL and the USFL that plays spring football, had their annual draft. Now, is it really that noteworthy that Kedon Slovis was taken in the draft? Maybe it isn't, but he was taken in the second round of this draft, the third quarterback taken overall in the UFL draft. The first two were of other Big 12 products. Kansas's Jason Bean went number 1 overall to the Memphis Showboats, and then UCF's John Rice Plumlee was picked third by the Arlington Renegades, and then Slovis ended up being taken as the 12th overall pick, the 4th pick of the second round in that draft. So it gives Kedon, at minimum, another opportunity to continue his football playing career. Now, he is going into training camp beginning, I believe, next week with the Indianapolis Colts, who he signed with as an undrafted free agent after the the NFL draft wrapped up in April. And I wish him nothing but the best. Hope he can carve out a role for himself in the NFL, because obviously the money is better and the quality of life, everything with the NFL is at a higher standard than the UFL. But if for whatever reason it does not work at Indianapolis, and let's say he's not able to latch on with another franchise out there, speaking of Slovis, he will have an opportunity if he wants to continue his playing career at the UFL level. Now, the UFL level has proven to allow guys to go out and prove themselves and get NFL opportunities. If he does play at the UFL level, I think I buried the lead on this. He's going to be playing for the DC Defenders, who actually have one of the best, strongest fan bases in the UFL. If you've ever watched a UFL game, or formerly the USFL, or I think they were the XFL, they had the beer snake for many years. That, like, we're talking hundreds of cups of beer that's been consumed that they constructed into a snake that just kind of weaved its way through the crowd. It's kind of one of those unique traditions that has emerged out of the nascent leagues that these spring football leagues have been over the past 4 or 5 seasons. But I really think this is a cool thing for Kedon Slovis. It's a mark of respect for him, obviously, because a team like DC believes that he's capable of being the guy for them, because they wouldn't have taken a draft pick this high in that draft without the thought, if Kedon does decide to go play in the UFL, that he would likely be their starter. But the other point is that, like, if it does not work out at the NFL level, and I sincerely hope it does for Kedon, because he was a prince of a human being during his relatively short tenure in Provo. He embraced everything that BYU was all about. We're talking going to teammates' baptisms, going to guys who are leaving on missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is a kid who grew up in Arizona and probably knew about LDS people and the LDS faith growing up, but he respected everything BYU was about, and he embraced it. It was unfortunate that he got an injury last year and was unable to play, and there was some thought that he could have come back for the final 2 games of the year. You know what? At that point, BYU staff essentially told him, we're not going to sacrifice your potential pro career for a short-term gain. And that you can take that for what it's worth, but that's the way it was explained to me, that even if he had been cleared, and I don't have it on good authority that he was cleared to return in those final 2 games of the season, but the staff at BYU was adamant in saying, hey, we've got a bigger picture to consider here. Yes, you want to help your teammates. Yes, you want to put on for the university that you're playing for, but understand that you have opportunities to play at the next level and garner wealth that you cannot get otherwise, and continue to play the sport you want to do. Don't sacrifice the short term for the long term. I know that it sounds almost in a way like negative towards BYU in terms of their perspective, but they want to do right by their guys. And Kalani Sitake has talked about it. He wants BYU to be a place where guys can thrive, obviously playing in college football, but more importantly, should they have aspirations of playing the next level, that gives them that platform to do that. And this, in this circumstance, is just another way for Kedon Slovis to keep playing the game that he loves, because you don't persevere through what he persevered through at multiple stops in college football, playing for multiple coaches, dealing with multiple injuries, all the things he dealt with. He has a love for the game, and the good news is if it doesn't work out in the NFL, he'll have an opportunity with the UFL to go and continue his playing career that way, and I think we can all celebrate that fact. All right, there we go. That's what I got for you guys on this Thursday edition of the podcast. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an early heads up looking at next week. I am going to be out on vacation after a Monday, so I have plans to get full podcasts in on Monday and Tuesday leading up to the Pioneer Day holiday, which is celebrated pretty heavily here in the state of Utah. But then the rest of the week, I'm going to play oldies but goodies. So interviews that we've had in the recent past will play for you guys. So just a heads up on that if you see some of the content change next week. But then the week after that, training camp is here and we're off and rolling. So get ready. It is getting close. It is getting time to go. And I, for one, I am ecstatic and excited that football is nearly back in our lives. And it's been a long off season, but I cannot wait to have it full tilt once again. So once again, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen and or view of the day. And thank you to all of you once again who are everydayers as well. And until tomorrow, everybody, have a great rest of your day. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.